Hi, Grandma here. Do you remember that we were reading the book Black Beauty by Anne Soules? Remember who Black Beauty's mother was? Her name was Duchess. And do you remember the farmer's name? His name was Farmer Gray. And do you remember that Farmer Gray was going to break Black Beauty? And he was then going to go live with Squire Gordon. Let's see what happens today. And so, on a bright, sunny day in May, when Black Beauty had been thoroughly broken in, a man came to take him to his new home at Squire Gordon's in Birtwick Park. "Goodbye, Black Beauty," said the master. "Be a good horse." Black Beauty could not say goodbye, so he put his nose in his master's hand, and the master patted him kindly, and then Black Beauty left for his first home. At Birtwick Park, the stable was big and airy, with 4 good stalls in it. The first stall was the biggest, and into this fine box the groom led Black Beauty, gave him some oats, patted him kindly, and left him. After he had eaten the good oats, Black Beauty looked around. In the next stall stood a little, fat, gray pony. "How do you do?" said Black Beauty. "What is your name?" "My name is Merrylegs," said the pony. "Are you going to live next door to me?" "Yes," said Black Beauty. "Well then," Merrylegs said, "I hope you are a good-tempered. I don't like anyone next door who bites." Just then, the head of a tall chestnut mare came up from the stall behind. The ears were laid back, and there was an ill-tempered look in his eyes. "So you're the one who's turned me out of my stall," she exclaimed. "A colt like you turning a lady out of her own home." "I beg your pardon," said Black Beauty. "I haven't turned anybody out. The man who brought me put me here, and as to my being a colt, I'm 4 years old, and I'm a grown-up horse. I've never had a quarrel with anyone, and it is my wish to live at peace." The mare said, "We shall see," and turned her back. Later that day, when she was out of the stable, Merrylegs told Black Beauty all about her. "The trouble is that Ginger has a bad habit of biting and snapping. When she was in your box, she used to snap so much that Miss Flora and Miss Jessie were afraid to come into the stable. They were very fond of me, and I hope they will come again now, if you don't bite or snap." Black Beauty told Merrylegs that he never bit anything but grass, hay, and corn. "It's just a bad habit with Ginger," Merrylegs went on. "She has no one who has ever been good to her, and why shouldn't she bite? People must have been very unkind to her before she came here, but perhaps she will be good-tempered from now on. You see," he said with a wise look, "I'm 12 years old, and I can tell you there isn't a better place in the country for a horse than this. So it's all Ginger's fault that she didn't stay in that box." In the very short time, Black Beauty felt quite at home among his new friends at Birtwick Park. John the groom seemed to know just how a horse feels, and when he cleaned Black Beauty, he knew the tender places and ticklish places. Jim the stable boy was just as pleasant and gentle in his ways. And of course, there's Merrylegs, who was so cheerful, plucky, and good-tempered. Miss Jessie and Miss Flora used to ride him about in the orchard and have fine games with him and their little dog Frisky. Not long after his arrival, Black Beauty was taken out with Ginger to pull the carriage. He wondered how they would get on together, but she behaved very well. When they went up a hill, instead of slowing down, she would trot her full weight forward and pull straight ahead. And after they had been out 2 or 3 times together, they grew quite friendly. One day when Ginger and Black Beauty were standing alone in the shade, Ginger asked Black Beauty to tell her all about his bringing up and breaking in. When he had finished, she said, sadly, "You're lucky. If I had been treated like that, I might have a good temper as you." Then she told Black Beauty how before she came to Birtwick Park to live, she had been forced by a check rein to hold her head up too high for hours at a time and to wear 2 sharp bits in her mouth instead of one, and how she had been whipped. Black Beauty felt very sorry for her. As the weeks went by and she got only good treatment from John and James, he noticed that she began to lose her scary, suspicious look and grow much more gentle and cheerful. One morning in the autumn, Black Beauty was harnessed to the dog cart, and the squire set off on a long journey with John driving. It was late afternoon before the squire had finished his business and was returning home. Suddenly, as they drove along the edge of a wood, a big storm came up. Trees came crashing down around them, and one fell across the road in front of the dog cart. Black Beauty stopped still and trembled, but he did not turn around or run away. He had been brought up not to do that. John jumped down and said, "There, there," said Black Beauty in a soothing voice of calmness. They could not go on because the fallen tree had blocked the road, so they had to turn back and take a longer route. It was nearly dark when they reached a small wooden bridge that they had to cross. The bridge. The moment Black Beauty's feet touched the planks of the bridge, he felt sure that there was something wrong, and he came to a dead stop. John tried to lead him forward. "Come on, Beauty, what's the matter?" Of course, Black Beauty couldn't tell him, but he knew very well that the bridge was not safe. Just then a man at the toll gate at the other end of the bridge ran frantically across, waving a torch about. "Ho, ho, ho, halloo, stop!" he cried. "What's the matter?" shouted Squire Gordon. "The bridge is broken in the middle, and part of it has been carried away. If you take another step, you'll be in the river." "You, Beauty," cried John, "you saved our lives." He gently turned Black Beauty around, and they started off again, taking a different route home. Black Beauty heard the squire talking to John. He was glad he had learned that by stopping when he did, he had saved him all from being drowned. God, said Squire, had given men reason by which they could find out things for themselves, but he had given animals knowledge which did not depend on reason, and by which they had often saved the lives of men. Oh, what a fine supper John gave Black Beauty that night. A nice thick bed of straw, too, and Black Beauty was glad of it, for he was tired. One of the greatest places for a horse was being saddled for a riding party. The master always rode Ginger, and mistress rode Black Beauty. It was so cheerful to be trotting and cantering that it always put the 2 horses in high spirit. Black Beauty had the best of it, for the mistress's voice was sweet and her hand was so light on the reins that he was guided almost without feeling it. Oh, Black Beauty used to think, if people only knew what a comfort to animals a light hand is, and how it keeps a horse's mouth in good condition. The animal himself is in good temper. They surely would not drag and pull at the reins as they often do. Horses' mouths are so tender that where they have not been spoiled or hardened by bad or ignorant treatment, they feel the slightest movement of the driver's hand and know what the driver wants them to do. Late one afternoon, when Ginger and Black Beauty were brought back to the stables, they noticed that Merrylegs was not yet back in his stall. He had been taken out early in the day by Miss Flora and Miss Jessie and her friends. While Ginger and Black Beauty were still wondering where he could be, James brought him in. As he put the halter on Merrylegs, James said, "There, you rascal, see that you behave yourself." "What have you been doing, Merrylegs?" Black Beauty asked. "Oh, said he, tossing his little head. I have only been giving those young people a lesson. They didn't know when they had had enough or when I had had enough, so I just pitched them off backwards. What? Said Black Beauty. You threw the children off? Did you throw Miss Jessie or Miss Flora? Merrylegs looked very hurt and said, Of course not. I'm very careful of them. It's the boys. Boys, he said, shaking his mane, are quite different. They must be broken in as we were broken in when we were colts and taught what's what. The other children had ridden me around for nearly 2 hours, and the boys felt it was their turn. I didn't mind, but when they cut a stick for riding whip and began beating me with it hard, I stopped 2 or 3 times to let them know I didn't like it. But they didn't seem to understand that a pony can get tired or have feelings. So I just rose up on my hind legs and let the boy who was sitting on me slip off behind. That was all. I had to do it again and again to make them all understand. They're not bad boys. They don't mean to be cruel, but I had to teach them a lesson. If I had been you, said Ginger, I would have given those boys a good kick. Oh, no, said Merrylegs. I couldn't do that. After the kind treatment I've had here, why should I turn nasty because of a couple of ignorant boys used me badly? Besides, if I began kicking, the master would sell me, and I might find myself worked to death at some place where no one cared for me. No, shaking his head, I hope I'd never come to that. But look, here comes the boys with their hands full of apples. I guess it's their way of saying that they're sorry for the way they acted. Ginger and Black Beauty were glad to be with Merrylegs when the boys returned and brought their peace offerings, and the 3 friends enjoyed munching the sweet apples. We still have a ways to go in Black Beauty, but we'll stop right here today and pick up again tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed Black Beauty and his meeting his new home. Love you all. Grandma here.